Daniel Harper stood at his mother's graveside watching the casket descend into frozen ground, his hands numb from January cold, and his heart shattered from burying the woman who raised him alone. But he didn't know that his wife, Victoria, was waiting in the parking lot with divorce papers already signed, ready to marry his best friend Cole the moment the funeral ended. Daniel, a quiet accountant who'd spent the last 3 years caring for his dying mother while his marriage disintegrated, believed he'd lost everything when his wife divorced him in front of mourning relatives and handed him legal documents with Cole standing beside her, holding her hand, completely unaware that his mother had secretly built an $800 million financial empire and left him everything including Meridian Trust Bank, the very institution that held Victoria's $340,000 debt from her failed boutique and mounting credit cards. Victoria married Cole in a courthouse ceremony 2 days later, flashing her new ring on social media while Daniel sat in his childhood home, sorting through his mother's belongings. But neither his ex-wife nor his former best friend knew about the inheritance meeting scheduled for that same afternoon, or that Daniel now owned the financial leverage that could destroy them both with a single phone call. What happens when a man who lost everything at his mother's funeral discovers he inherited $800 million and owns the bank that holds his ex-wife's debt? What did Daniel do when he realized he had the power to forgive or financially ruin the people who betrayed him at his lowest moment? And why would a divorce so cruel, a best friend's ultimate deception, and a mother's secret empire lead to a decision so unexpected it would shock everyone who thought they knew what justice looked like? Daniel Harper's hands wouldn't stop shaking. He sat in the offices of Whitmore and Associates, staring at documents that made no sense. The lawyer Robert Whitmore was in his 70s with kind eyes that had seen everything and judged nothing. He slid another folder across the mahogany desk. "Your mother, Eleanor Harper, was one of the most brilliant financial minds I've ever encountered," Robert said quietly. "She started with nothing in 1983. Single mother, working 2 jobs, raising you alone. But she had a gift for seeing patterns in markets that others missed." Daniel's throat was tight. His mother's funeral had been 3 days ago, 3 days since he'd stood at her grave while his wife, ex-wife now, had approached him with papers and pity. Victoria's voice still echoed in his memory, clinical and final. "I can't do this anymore, Dan. Your mother is gone. There's nothing keeping us together. Cole and we've been honest about our feelings. We're getting married." Cole, his best friend since college, the man who'd stood beside Daniel at his own wedding 8 years ago, the man who'd visited Eleanor in the hospital exactly twice, both times spending less than 10 minutes before making excuses about work. "Mr. Harper," Robert's voice pulled him back. "I know this is overwhelming. Perhaps we should continue another time." "No." Daniel's voice was rough. "Please, tell me everything." Robert nodded and opened the first folder. "Your mother's portfolio includes commercial real estate in 12 states, venture capital holdings in 47 companies, treasury bonds, and controlling interest in Meridian Trust Bank. The total estate value is approximately $807 million. You are the sole heir." The room tilted. Daniel gripped the armrests. $800 million. His mother, who'd served coffee at diners and cleaned office buildings at night, who'd worn the same winter coat for 15 years, who'd told him money wasn't important, kindness was. "That's impossible," Daniel whispered. "We lived in a tiny apartment. She worked until she couldn't anymore. We barely afforded. She wanted you to grow up without the weight of wealth. She wanted you to develop character, not entitlement." Robert pulled out a letter, Eleanor's familiar handwriting across the envelope. "She left this for you, but first I need to explain something time-sensitive." He opened another file, and Daniel saw Victoria's name. His stomach dropped. "Meridian Trust Bank, which you now control, holds significant debt for Victoria Chen, your ex-wife. $340,000 in business loans for a boutique that failed, plus accumulated credit card debt. The loans are in default. The bank's standard procedure would be to begin aggressive collection, potentially forcing bankruptcy." Daniel stared at the numbers. Victoria's boutique. She'd opened it 4 years ago against his advice, maxing out credit cards and taking loans she couldn't afford. He'd offered to help with the bookkeeping, tried to show her the numbers didn't work. She called him unsupportive, said he was jealous of her ambition. The boutique had closed 18 months ago. She'd never mentioned the debt. There's more, Robert said carefully. Cole Brennan, your former friend, recently applied for a commercial loan through Meridian Trust. $2 million to expand his real estate development company. The application is pending. It requires board approval, which effectively means your approval. Daniel's breath caught. Cole's business. Cole, who'd always been successful, flashy, the kind of man who measured worth in deals closed, in properties developed. Cole, who was now married to Victoria. So I own their debt, Daniel said slowly. And I control whether Cole gets the loan he needs. Yes. Robert's expression was unreadable. Your mother knew about Victoria and Cole. She updated her will 2 months before she passed. She knew exactly what she was leaving you and what it would mean. Daniel's eyes burned. His mother had known, had watched him care for her while his marriage crumbled, had seen Victoria's visits become shorter and less frequent, had probably noticed how Cole stopped coming around. And she'd said nothing, just held Daniel's hand and told him he had a good heart. Read her letter, Robert said gently, standing. I'll give you privacy. Take all the time you need. When the door closed, Daniel opened the envelope with trembling fingers. His mother's voice filled his mind as he read, My dearest Daniel, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And you're probably angry I kept secrets. I'm sorry for that, but not sorry for why I did it. I needed to know who you'd become without money influencing your choices. You became exactly the man I hoped. Kind, patient, generous with your time and heart. By now you know about Victoria and Cole. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I saw it coming a year ago. The way she looked at him, the way he looked at what she represented. They didn't fall in love. They fell into mutual convenience. She wanted security and status. He wanted someone who'd make him look successful. Neither of them wanted you. They wanted what they thought you couldn't give them. Here's what they don't know. You can give them everything or nothing. You own Victoria's debt. You control Cole's future. You have the power to destroy them financially with a phone call. I'm asking you not to. Not because they deserve mercy. They don't. But because cruelty would poison the good heart you've spent 32 years developing. Revenge feels satisfying for about 5 minutes, then it hollows you out from the inside. Instead, I'm asking you to do something harder. Decide what kind of wealthy man you want to be. Use your power to build, not destroy. Help people who deserve it. Create opportunities for those who've been denied them. And regarding Victoria and Cole, let their own choices deliver their consequences. You don't need to punish them. Life will. There's a foundation I started 10 years ago. The Eleanor Harper Foundation for Single Parents. $50 million helping people like I was, working multiple jobs, trying to give their kids better lives. I want you to run it now. Pour your energy into that instead of into bitterness. I love you. I'm proud of you. Don't let their smallness make you small. Be the man I raised. Mom Daniel read it 3 times, tears streaming down his face. His mother, even in death, was teaching him, protecting him, guiding him toward the person she'd always believed he could be. He sat in that office for an hour thinking about power and character, about revenge and purpose, about the man he wanted to be versus the man his pain wanted him to become. Finally, he pressed the intercom. Mr. Whitmore, I'm ready to discuss next steps. Robert returned, settling back into his chair. What would you like to do? Daniel took a deep breath. First, I want to understand exactly what my mother built and how she built it. I want to learn everything so I can honor her work properly. Second, I want to take over the foundation immediately. Third, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Regarding Victoria's debt and Cole's loan, I'm not making any decisions today. I want time to think, to observe, to see who they really are now that they have what they wanted. Robert nodded slowly. Your mother said you'd say something like that. She called it the wisdom of patience. She said the best way to understand someone's character is to watch what they do when they think no one's watching or when they think they've already won. Did she leave any other guidance? Volumes. Robert smiled slightly. Your mother wrote detailed notes about nearly every scenario she could imagine. She spent 2 years preparing you for this. Even though you didn't know it, there are letters for different situations, different choices you might face. She tried to think of everything. Daniel felt something crack open in his chest, grief and gratitude mixed together. Can I see them? Of course, but perhaps not all today. You've had enough revelations for one afternoon. Robert handed him a key. This is to your mother's safe deposit box. There are more letters there, along with journals she kept about her investment philosophy, her values, her hopes for what you'd do with her legacy. Daniel took the key, its weight somehow significant. Thank you for taking care of her, for taking care of all this. She was extraordinary. I'm honored to help you continue her work. Robert stood, extending his hand. One more thing. Your mother insisted I tell you this. Don't hide forever. She hid her wealth because she was protecting you. But you're grown now. Eventually, you'll need to step into this role publicly. Not immediately. Take time to grieve, to learn, to find your footing. But don't be ashamed of what she built or what you've inherited. Use it wisely and openly. Daniel shook his hand, feeling the weight of legacy settling on his shoulders. Not crushing, more like armor. Protection his mother had forged over decades specifically for this moment. He left the office and walked through the city, seeing it differently now. Every struggling parent reminded him of his mother. Every small business made him think of opportunities. Every homeless person made him wonder what systems had failed them and how those systems could be changed. His phone buzzed. Victoria. I know this is awkward, but I left some things at the apartment. Can I pick them up this week? Daniel stared at the message. She didn't know that her financial future was now in his hands. Didn't know that every debt payment went through systems he controlled. Didn't know that he could forgive or enforce, help or hurt with a single decision. He texted back. Sure, let me know when. Simple, neutral, giving nothing away. Another text came through. Cole. Hey man, I know things are weird between us, but I want you to know I never meant to hurt you. Victoria and I just connected. Sometimes these things happen. I hope we can eventually be cool again. Daniel's jaw tightened. The casual dismissal of 8 years of friendship. The breezy "these things happen" about stealing his wife at his mother's funeral. The assumption that Daniel would just accept it, move on, be cool with ultimate betrayal. He didn't respond. Instead, he walked to his mother's house, his house now, and sat in her chair, surrounded by her books and memories. He pulled out her letter again, focusing on one line. Let their own choices deliver their consequences. What would that look like? What consequences were already in motion that he couldn't see yet? His phone rang. Robert Whitmore. Daniel, I apologize for calling so soon, but something's developed that you should know about. Victoria just called Meridian Trust Collections Department. She's requesting a payment extension on her debt. She cited family emergency as the reason. The representative who took the call didn't know about your ownership. They scheduled a meeting for next week to discuss restructuring options. Daniel's pulse quickened. What would normally happen in that meeting? Standard procedure is to offer a hardship program, reduced payments over extended time, but with higher overall interest. If she can't meet even reduced payments, the bank would begin formal collection proceedings. That could mean asset seizure, wage garnishment, damaged credit that would follow her for years. And Cole's loan application, scheduled for board review in 2 weeks. Normally it would be approved. He has decent collateral and his business shows promise. But the board will defer to your judgment as majority owner. Daniel thanked him and hung up. So it was beginning. Victoria was desperate enough to beg the bank for mercy, not knowing she was begging him. Cole was confident enough to apply for $2 million, not knowing his future required Daniel's signature. They thought they'd escaped, thought they'd moved on to better lives while Daniel grieved in the wreckage they'd created. They had no idea he held every card. His mother's voice whispered through memory, "Don't let their smallness make you small." But what did that mean in practice? How did you hold power without wielding it as a weapon? How did you let consequences unfold without becoming the consequence yourself? Daniel opened his laptop and began researching. He read about Meridian Trust lending practices, its collection procedures, its impact on the community. He read about predatory banking and ethical finance. He read about debt forgiveness programs and financial literacy initiatives. And slowly, an idea formed. Not revenge, something better. Something his mother would be proud of. Daniel spent the next 2 weeks living two lives. Publicly, he was grieving Daniel Harper, quiet accountant whose wife had left him. He went to work at his small firm, processed tax returns, kept his head down. People offered condolences about his mother and awkward sympathy about his divorce. He accepted both with quiet grace. Privately, he was learning to be Daniel Harper, heir to $800 million and chairman of Meridian Trust Bank. He met with Robert Whitmore daily. He studied his mother's investment strategies, reading her journals late into the night. He learned about every property, every holding, every decision she'd made over 40 years. His mother had been brilliant. She'd invested in struggling neighborhoods before they gentrified, buying property cheap and holding it until values rose. But she'd never displaced residents. Instead, she'd renovated buildings and kept rents affordable, believing that stable housing created stable communities. She'd invested in small businesses owned by women and minorities, companies that traditional banks ignored. She'd seen potential where others saw risk. And Meridian Trust Bank, she'd acquired controlling interest 15 years ago specifically because it was failing under predatory practices. She'd quietly reformed it, shifting from extraction to investment, from maximizing profit to maximizing community impact. Under her guidance, it had become profitable by being ethical, proving that the two weren't mutually exclusive. Now it was his, all of it. Victoria's debt restructuring meeting was scheduled for Monday. Daniel decided to attend, not as owner, but as observer. Robert arranged it, having him listed as a junior executive in training. Victoria wouldn't recognize him in that context. She'd never paid attention to his work. Monday arrived cold and gray. Daniel dressed in a suit, nothing expensive, just professional. He arrived at Meridian Trust's downtown branch early, his stomach churning with nerves and something darker he didn't want to name. The collections manager, Patricia Torres, briefed him before Victoria arrived. Standard hardship case, failed business, accumulated debt, no clear repayment path. Normally, we'd offer reduced payments, but honestly, even those would be a stretch for her. Her new husband has income, but they've kept finances separate. She's on her own with this debt. What happens if she can't pay even reduced amounts? Daniel asked. Patricia's expression was sympathetic but firm. Collections escalates. We'd pursue asset seizure, wage garnishment. It's not pleasant, but it's business. People need to be accountable for their debts. Daniel thought about his mother's letters, about accountability versus cruelty, about justice versus revenge. Let's hear what she has to say, he said finally. Victoria arrived 10 minutes late, flustered and defensive. She wore designer clothes Daniel knew she couldn't afford, probably bought on credit she didn't have. Her wedding ring was large, flashy. She looked successful, or like someone desperately trying to appear successful. She didn't glance at Daniel, sitting quietly in the corner with his notepad. Patricia opened the file. Ms. Chen, it's Mrs. Brennan now, Victoria corrected, her voice sharp. Mrs. Brennan, you're here to discuss your outstanding debt of $342,000, currently 90 days delinquent. You've requested payment restructuring due to hardship. Can you explain your current financial situation? Victoria's polished demeanor cracked slightly. I had a business that didn't work out. I'm between opportunities right now. My husband and I are managing expenses, but I need time to get back on my feet. I'm good for the money. I just need flexibility. Your husband, Cole Brennan, has substantial income from his real estate business. Is he not able to assist with this debt? Victoria's face flushed. We keep our finances separate. This is my responsibility. I'm handling it. Daniel watched her carefully. She was lying, not about the separate finances, but about having any plan to handle it. She was stalling, hoping something would save her, hoping Cole would eventually bail her out, or that the debt would somehow disappear. Patricia continued methodically. What income sources do you currently have? I'm consulting, freelance marketing work. It's building. Can you provide documentation of that income? Victoria's jaw tightened. I'm just starting. The clients are new. I don't have formal contracts yet. More lies, or wishful thinking that functioned as lies. Daniel felt strange watching her. This woman he'd loved for 8 years, had promised forever to, had imagined building a life with. She seemed like a stranger now. Had she always been this person? Or had desperation created someone new? Patricia laid out the options: reduced payment plan that would still stretch Victoria's non-existent income, or formal collections proceedings. Victoria's hands shook as she realized the trap she was in. "I need more time," Victoria said, her voice rising. "This isn't fair. I had a family emergency. My ex-husband's mother died, and I had to deal with the divorce right after. I've been emotionally devastated. Doesn't that count for anything?" Daniel's chest tightened. She was using his mother's death, their divorce, as an excuse for not paying debt she'd accumulated before any of that happened. She was rewriting history, making herself the victim. Patricia's expression remained neutral. "I understand these are difficult circumstances. However, the debt predates these events. We need a concrete repayment plan." Victoria stood abruptly. "I need to talk to my husband. I need to think about this. I'll call you back." She left without signing anything, her heels clicking angry rhythms down the hallway. Patricia sighed. "She won't call back. She'll avoid us until we force the issue. Standard pattern." Daniel sat in silence, processing what he'd witnessed. This was who Victoria had become, or maybe always was. Someone who made bad decisions, refused accountability, used other people's tragedies to avoid consequences. "What would you do?" he asked Patricia suddenly. She looked surprised. "Me? I'd pursue collections. She's had multiple chances. She's not serious about repayment, but..." She paused. "Your mother, Mrs. Harper, she always said to look at the whole person, not just the numbers. She'd probably ask why this woman made such bad choices, whether there was a way to help her make better ones." Daniel felt his throat tighten. Even Patricia knew his mother's philosophy. Eleanor Harper had touched every part of this institution. "What if we offered something different?" Daniel said slowly. "What if we forgave half the debt on condition that she complete financial literacy training and business management courses? Make her earn the forgiveness by learning why she failed, so she doesn't fail again." Patricia studied him with new interest. "That's very much something Mrs. Harper would have suggested. It's more lenient than policy usually allows, but it's not without precedent. We have an educational loan forgiveness program your mother created. It could apply. Let's offer it, see if she takes it. And if she refuses, if she wants forgiveness without effort, then we proceed with collections, but we offer the chance first." Patricia nodded slowly. "I'll draft the proposal." Cole's loan application came before the board the following week. Daniel attended his first official board meeting as majority owner, still processing the surreal reality of his new life. The boardroom was elegant, oak-paneled, filled with people who'd worked with his mother for years. They greeted him with warmth and curiosity, offering condolences and congratulations in the same breath. Daniel felt like an imposter in his father's clothes, except his father had never existed, and these were his mother's clothes, her legacy, her carefully built empire. Cole's application was third on the agenda. The loan officer presented it professionally. Cole Brennan, 33 years old, owner of Brennan Development LLC, requesting $2 million for commercial property acquisition and renovation. Solid collateral, decent credit, business showing steady growth. Recommend approval with standard terms. The board began discussion. Most seemed favorable. The numbers worked. The collateral was solid. The business model sound. Then Patricia Torres spoke up. "I'd like to note that Mr. Brennan recently married Victoria Chen, who currently has substantial delinquent debt with this bank. While their finances are legally separate, there may be reputational concerns about extending large loans to someone connected to a collection case." The room went quiet. Daniel felt everyone's eyes shift toward him, waiting for his response. He took a breath. "What were my mother's criteria for commercial loans?" An older board member, Helen Crawford, answered. "Eleanor always looked beyond numbers. She wanted to know, will this loan create jobs? Will it improve the community? Will it help someone build something meaningful or just make them richer?" She turned down plenty of profitable loans because they failed those tests. "And this loan?" Daniel asked. "Cole Brennan's project. What would it create? The loan officer consulted his notes. Luxury condos in a working-class neighborhood, projected to price out current residents, but generate significant profit. There it was, the exact kind of extractive development his mother had opposed, displacing communities for profit, taking from those who had little to benefit those who had much. Then we decline, Daniel said quietly. A ripple of surprise moved through the room. On what grounds? Another board member asked. The financials are sound. On the grounds that this bank, under my mother's leadership, invested in communities, not displacement. We can offer Mr. Brennan a different proposal, a smaller loan with requirements that his development include affordable housing units, maintain community spaces, and preserve neighborhood character. If he agrees, we'll fund it. If not, he can seek financing elsewhere. Helen smiled. Your mother would have said exactly that. The board voted. Daniel's proposal passed unanimously. Afterward, Patricia approached him. Cole Brennan won't accept those terms. He'll see them as insulting. Then he'll get his loan somewhere else, Daniel said, and he'll build his luxury condos and displace families and make his profit. But he won't do it with my mother's money. Victoria received our debt restructuring proposal. She hasn't responded. Give her time. She'll either accept responsibility or face consequences. Either way, it's her choice. Daniel left the bank feeling strange, powerful and small simultaneously. He'd just made decisions affecting hundreds of thousands of dollars, people's lives, community futures. It was terrifying. It was also deeply right. His phone rang. Robert Whitmore. Daniel, Cole Brennan just called my office. He's asking to speak with the bank's ownership about his loan decision. He's angry. I think he suspects something. Did you tell him who owns the bank? No, but he's digging. It's only a matter of time before he figures it out. Daniel thought about his mother's letters, her guidance about patience and observation. Set up a meeting, let him state his case. I want to hear what he says when he thinks he's talking to strangers. The meeting was scheduled for Friday afternoon. Daniel prepared by reading everything about Cole's business, his projects, his reputation, his values as expressed through his work. What he found was illuminating. Cole developed properties for maximum profit with minimum community consideration. He displaced low-income residents, converted affordable housing to luxury units, chased trends over sustainability. He was exactly the kind of developer his mother had spent decades opposing. Friday came. Daniel arrived at the conference room early, positioning himself again as a junior executive observer. Let Cole underestimate him. Let him reveal himself fully. Cole strode in 15 minutes late, confidence radiating from every gesture. He wore an expensive suit, carried himself like someone accustomed to getting what he wanted. He shook hands with the senior loan officer and the board representative, barely glancing at Daniel in the corner. Appreciate you taking this meeting, Cole began, his voice smooth. I'll be direct. Your decision to reject my loan application, or rather to condition it on terms that fundamentally change my business model, is frankly insulting. I've provided solid financials, quality collateral, and a proven track record. Your conditions about affordable housing and community spaces would reduce my profit margin by 40%. That's not business. That's activism. The loan officer responded carefully. Meridian Trust has a long history of community-focused lending. These conditions align with our institutional values. Cole laughed, sharp and dismissive. Institutional values. That's code for leaving money on the table. Look, I understand Eleanor Harper had her pet causes, but she's gone. This bank needs to operate in the real world, where profit matters and sentiment doesn't. I'm offering you a chance to invest in a highly lucrative project. Your conditions make it unworkable. Daniel's hands tightened on his pen. The casual dismissal of his mother's life work. The reduction of decades of principled investing to pet causes and sentiment. Are you open to any compromise? The board representative asked. I'm open to you approving my original application without strings attached. Otherwise, I'll get financing elsewhere. I've got 3 other banks interested. Cole leaned back, confident. I'll be honest, I expected better from you. I mean, one of your major clients is my new wife. Victoria has debt with you, sure, But that shows we're already in business together. I thought you'd see the value in maintaining that relationship. And there it was. Cole was using Victoria's debt as leverage, assuming the bank would want to keep them both as clients. He was trying to manipulate them. Daniel spoke for the first time. How is Victoria's debt situation relevant to your loan application? Cole finally looked at him, reassessing. Who are you again? Junior executive, in training, learning the business. Well, junior executive, it's relevant because banks care about relationships. Victoria and I are married. We're building a future together. Smart banks invest in futures. He smiled, all teeth. But you're young. You'll learn about relationship banking eventually. The condescension was palpable. Daniel kept his expression neutral. And if Victoria's debt goes to collections, if she faces asset seizure and damaged credit, how does that affect the relationship? Cole's smile faltered. That won't happen. Victoria's handling it. Is she? Because her debt is 90 days delinquent and growing, and she hasn't responded to the restructuring proposal we offered last week. Cole's face reddened. How do you know about that? I read all the files, part of my training. Well, that's Victoria's problem, not mine. We keep our finances separate. But his voice had an edge now, defensiveness creeping in. The board representative stepped in. Mr. Brennan, our decision stands. We'll approve your loan under the conditions stated, affordable housing requirements, community preservation clauses, or we decline entirely. Those are your options. Cole stood abruptly. Then we're done. I'll get better terms elsewhere. And when Victoria and I are successful, when my developments are making money and your community values bank is struggling, remember that you chose activism over business. He left, slamming the door slightly. The room sat in silence. Finally, Helen Crawford spoke. That man is everything Eleanor fought against. Extractive, arrogant, community-destroying. I'm glad we declined. Daniel's chest felt tight. That man had been his best friend, had stood at his wedding, had laughed with him, confided in him, claimed brotherhood. But maybe Cole had always been this person, and Daniel simply hadn't seen it, or maybe success had corrupted him. Either way, the man who just left bore no resemblance to the friend Daniel thought he'd known. He mentioned Victoria, Patricia said carefully. Should we expedite her collections case? Daniel thought about it. The easy answer was yes. Punish them both. Use his power to hurt them the way they'd hurt him. But that wasn't what his mother would do. No, he said finally. Victoria's case proceeds on its own timeline. Her choices determine her outcomes, not Cole's behavior. They're separate people making separate decisions. Even though they're married, especially because they're married, let them navigate that themselves. 2 weeks later, Victoria called the bank. She accepted the debt restructuring proposal, half forgiveness in exchange for completing financial literacy and business management courses. She sounded defeated, humbled, nothing like the confident woman who'd handed Daniel divorce papers at his mother's funeral. Patricia Torres called Daniel with the update. She starts classes next week. It's a 6-month program. If she completes it successfully, we'll forgive half her debt and restructure the remainder at low interest. If she drops out, the full amount becomes due immediately. Thank you for handling this, Daniel said. Your mother would have loved this solution, teaching instead of punishing. It's very Eleanor Harper. Daniel hung up and pulled out another of his mother's letters. She'd left dozens, each one labeled for different scenarios. This one was marked, "When they accept consequences." He opened it. Daniel, if Victoria or Cole have accepted terms that require growth instead of just punishment, I'm proud of them and of you. It means they're capable of learning, even if painfully. It means you chose teaching over destroying. Here's what happens next. They'll struggle. Learning is uncomfortable. Facing your failures is humiliating. They'll be tempted to quit, to blame you, to cast themselves as victims of your revenge. Don't let them, but also don't abandon them. The difference between justice and cruelty is whether there's a path forward. You've given them that path. Now they have to walk it. Some people will criticize you for being too lenient. They'll say betrayers deserve destruction. Maybe they do. But what do you deserve? You deserve to become the man who builds, not the man who destroys. Their choices already hurt them. You don't need to pile on. Keep building. Keep learning. Keep honoring what I tried to create. And remember, you're not responsible for fixing them. You're responsible for being the person you want to be. Love. Mom. Daniel folded the letter carefully and placed it with the others. His mother's wisdom continued to guide him, even in death. Each letter perfectly timed, each one addressing exactly what he was facing. Over the next months, Daniel stepped fully into his role. He took over the Eleanor Harper Foundation, expanding its programs to help single parents across 5 states. He worked with Meridian Trust's leadership to develop more community investment initiatives. He learned from board members who'd worked with his mother for decades, absorbing their knowledge and experience. He also began meeting the people his mother had helped over the years. A tech entrepreneur whose startup she'd funded when no one else would. A teacher whose school she'd supported with grants and resources. A community organizer whose housing cooperative she'd financed. Dozens of people whose lives were different because Eleanor Harper had seen their potential and invested in it. Each conversation deepened Daniel's understanding of what he'd inherited. Not just money, but mission. Not just assets, but responsibility. He also quietly observed Victoria's progress through her courses. Patricia sent monthly updates. Victoria was attending every class, completing every assignment. She was learning about financial planning, business fundamentals, marketing strategies. The same information Daniel had tried to share with her years ago, which she'd rejected as unsupportive criticism. Now she was paying attention because her survival depended on it. Cole, meanwhile, had secured financing from another bank, one that didn't care about community impact or affordable housing. He'd broken ground on his luxury condo project, displacing 20 families in the process. Local news covered protests. Community activists called him out. But Cole pushed forward, chasing profit over people. Daniel watched from a distance, feeling sad but not vindictive. He'd given Cole a chance to build something meaningful. Cole had chosen extraction over contribution. That was Cole's decision to live with. Then, 6 months after his mother's death, something unexpected happened. Daniel received an invitation to a community banking conference in Chicago. The keynote speaker, Victoria Chen Brennan, discussing financial literacy and second chances, a personal story. He stared at the invitation, shocked. Victoria was speaking publicly about her debt, her failure, her recovery. Curious, he registered and flew to Chicago. The conference hall was packed with banking professionals, community activists, and financial educators. Daniel sat in the back watching Victoria take the stage. She looked different, more substantial somehow, less polished but more authentic. 6 months ago, Victoria began, her voice shaking slightly, I was $300,000 in debt with no idea how to fix it. I'd failed at business spectacularly. I'd made terrible choices, and I was facing the consequences alone. She detailed her boutique failure, the accumulated debt, the shame of not knowing how money actually worked despite spending it freely. She talked about the debt restructuring proposal from Meridian Trust, about initially resenting it, seeing it as punishment. But it wasn't punishment, she said. It was a lifeline I was too proud to see. The courses they required, financial literacy, business fundamentals, strategic planning, they taught me everything I should have learned before opening a business. They showed me why I failed and how to avoid failing again. She paused, visibly emotional. The bank could have just destroyed me, taken everything, ruined my credit for years. Instead, they gave me education. They gave me tools. They gave me a chance to actually learn from my mistakes. Daniel's throat tightened. Victoria continued. I'm sharing this because I think our financial system is broken. We punish failure instead of teaching success. We take from those who fall instead of helping them stand. But there are institutions doing it differently. Banks like Meridian Trust, following models created by people like Eleanor Harper, who believe that money should build communities, not extract from them. She clicked to a slide, a photo of Eleanor. Daniel's breath caught. Eleanor Harper died 6 months ago. She built Meridian Trust into what it is, a bank that invests in people, not just profits. She never knew me, but her philosophy saved my financial life. I'm here to honor her legacy and to say, this model works. Teaching works. Investing in people works. The audience applauded. Victoria answered questions for 30 minutes, discussing financial education, second chance programs, community banking models. She was articulate, passionate, transformed. After the presentation, Daniel approached her. She was talking with attendees, handing out cards for a new consulting business she'd started. Financial literacy coaching for small business owners. When she saw him, her face went white. Daniel, Victoria, that was impressive. She looked like she might cry. I didn't know you'd be here. I own Meridian Trust. My mother left it to me. Her face cycled through shock, recognition, horror. You, the bank, you've known this whole time? Since 3 days after the funeral. Since the day you married Cole. Victoria sat down heavily. Oh my God, the debt restructuring, the educational requirements. That was you. That was my mother's philosophy. I just followed her guidance. You could have destroyed me. Her voice was barely a whisper. Yes. Why didn't you? Daniel thought about all his mother's letters, all her wisdom about character and choice. Because my mother taught me that power is responsibility. Because destroying you wouldn't have made me feel better, just smaller. Because you deserved a chance to learn and grow, not just suffer. Tears streamed down Victoria's face. I don't deserve your kindness. What I did, leaving you at your mother's funeral, the timing, the cruelty of it? No, Daniel agreed. You don't deserve kindness, but I deserve to become the kind of person who gives it anyway. Your choices were about who you are. My choices are about who I am. Victoria wiped her eyes. I can't undo what I did. I can't take back the pain. But I want you to know, I've learned, not just about money, about everything, about what matters and what doesn't, about the difference between success and integrity. I can see that. Your presentation was powerful. Because it's true. Because I failed completely and learned why. And now I'm trying to help others avoid the same mistakes. She hesitated. The consulting business, it's not making much money yet, but it's meaningful. It's helping people. I think your mother would have understood that. She would have. Daniel pulled out a business card. The Eleanor Harper Foundation funds financial literacy programs. If you're interested, we might be able to support your work. Not personally, this isn't about us. But if your program meets our criteria, we fund those initiatives. Victoria stared at the card. You'd fund my business after everything? I'd fund programs that serve the foundation's mission. If yours qualifies, yes, apply like anyone else. It'll be evaluated on merit. I don't understand you. Daniel smiled slightly. My mother spent 30 years building a system that invests in potential, not perfection. That helps people grow instead of just punishing failure. I'm trying to honor that. You did something terrible to me, Victoria, but you're also doing something valuable now. Those two things can both be true. Victoria's hand shook as she took the card. Thank you for the chance, for not destroying me when you could have, for being better than I was. We're all becoming someone, Daniel said. Every day, every choice. I'm trying to become someone my mother would be proud of. It sounds like you're doing the same. He left her there, feeling lighter than he had in months. Not because they'd reconciled. They hadn't and wouldn't. Their marriage was over, truly over. And that was right. But because he'd proven something to himself, he could hold power without becoming poisoned by it. He could face his betrayers with grace instead of vengeance. He could choose to build instead of destroy. His mother's training had worked. A year after Eleanor's death, Daniel stood on stage at Meridian Trust's annual shareholder meeting. The bank had its most profitable year in history, not by exploiting customers, but by investing in them. Community development loans had created 3,000 jobs. Small business grants had launched 67 new companies. The Affordable Housing Initiative had provided homes for 200 families. Profit and purpose weren't opposites. His mother had proved it over decades. Now he was proving it could continue. During the reception afterward, someone tapped his shoulder. He turned to find Cole, looking uncomfortable in a suit that didn't quite fit anymore. Daniel, can we talk? They stepped out onto a balcony overlooking the city. Cole looked older, harder, less confident. Saw Victoria's presentation online, Cole said. She's really turned things around. She worked hard for it. Yeah, Cole was quiet for a moment. My development project, the luxury condos you refuse to fund, it's failing. Market shifted. Luxury isn't selling like it used to. I'm overextended. Might lose everything. Daniel waited, saying nothing. I was wrong, Cole continued, the words seeming physically painful. About the bank, about community development, about your mother's approach. I chased maximum profit and I'm going to lose because of it. Meanwhile, you're succeeding doing exactly what I called activism. What do you want, Cole? I don't know. Maybe to apologize. Maybe to ask if there's a way to salvage my project with the community requirements you originally suggested. Maybe just to say, I fucked up. With the business, with Victoria, with you. I chose wrong on every front. Daniel looked at his former friend, seeing genuine regret, but also the desperation of consequences catching up. I can have someone from the bank review your project. If there's a way to convert it to mixed income housing with community benefit, we might refinance. But it won't be a bailout. It'll be a restructuring that serves the community first and your profit second. That's more than I deserve. Probably, but it's what my mother would have done. She believed in second chances for people willing to learn. You'll have to prove you're willing. Cole nodded slowly. I am. I have to be. Because this, he gestured vaguely at his life, isn't working. The marriage isn't working. Victoria and I rushed into something for the wrong reasons. We're divorcing. Daniel felt nothing but mild surprise. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. We weren't right for each other. We were just both running from feeling like failures, and we thought being together would make us successful. Didn't work. Cole met his eyes. For what it's worth, you were always the better man. I know that now. Took losing everything to see it, but I see it. I'm not better, Cole. I just had a better teacher. My mother spent her life showing me what integrity looks like. You and Victoria didn't have that. But you can learn it now if you choose to. They stood in silence, watching the city lights. Two men who'd been friends, weren't friends, might never be friends again. But maybe that was okay. Maybe some relationships ended not in hatred, but in understanding that you'd grown in different directions. Send your project proposal to the bank, Daniel said finally. We'll review it fairly. Thank you. After Cole left, Daniel pulled out his phone and looked at a photo of his mother. She was in her nurse's uniform, smiling at the camera, probably taken 30 years ago, before the wealth, before the empire, when she was just Eleanor Harper trying to raise her son right. I hope I'm making you proud, he whispered. His phone buzzed. Robert Whitmore. Board meeting next week to discuss the Eleanor Harper Foundation's expansion. We're proposing a $200 million endowment for nationwide financial literacy programs. Your mother would be thrilled. Daniel smiled, texting back, let's do it. He stayed on that balcony for a long time, feeling his mother's presence in the cool evening air, in the city she'd invested in the legacy she'd built brick by brick, decision by decision, choosing always to build rather than destroy. He'd inherited her money, but more importantly, he'd inherited her wisdom, and he was finally understanding what true wealth meant. Not how much you had, but what you built with it. Not the power to hurt, but the strength to help. Not revenge against those who wronged you, but grace that lifted everyone higher. Victoria would complete her debt repayment in 2 years, transformed by education into someone who helped others avoid her mistakes. Cole would either learn community-focused development or lose everything and learn from that instead. Either way, they were walking paths determined by their choices, not Daniel's revenge. And Daniel would continue building what his mother started, a financial system that invested in people's potential, a foundation that gave second chances, a legacy that proved wealth could be a tool for good. 3 years after his mother's death, Daniel stood at her grave on a spring morning. Flowers bloomed around the headstone. He'd had it carved simply, Eleanor Harper, builder of communities, investor in people, beloved mother. I did what you asked, he said quietly. I didn't let their betrayal make me cruel. I used the power you gave me to build, not destroy. I think you'd be proud. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying warmth and possibility. Victoria runs a successful financial literacy nonprofit now. We funded her initial expansion. She's helped hundreds of people avoid the mistakes she made. Cole reformed his business. He builds affordable housing now, not luxury condos. He'll never be rich, but he's solvent and contributing something meaningful. Daniel paused, emotion rising in his throat. And me? I'm running the bank you built, growing the foundation you started, trying to honor everything you taught me. I'm not perfect at it. I make mistakes. But I'm trying to be the man you raised me to be. The man who measures success in lives improved, not dollars accumulated. He placed fresh flowers on her grave. Thank you, Mom, for everything. For the money, yes, but more for the wisdom, for teaching me that power is responsibility. That wealth is stewardship, that the best revenge is becoming someone who doesn't need revenge because you're too busy building something beautiful. Daniel walked back to his car, feeling lighter with each step. He had work to do, a foundation to run, a bank to guide, communities to serve. He had a purpose his mother had spent decades building and a lifetime preparing him to fulfill. He didn't need Victoria or Cole or anyone who'd heard him to acknowledge what he'd become. He knew. His mother knew. And that was enough. The rest was just noise. The rest was just him, every day, choosing to be the man Eleanor Harper had raised him to be. Someone who invested in people, built communities, and proved that wealth could be a tool for good in the hands of someone with the character to use it wisely. Someone who shocked everyone not by being cruel, but by being kind when cruelty would have been easier. Someone who understood that the greatest power wasn't the ability to destroy your enemies, but the strength to help them become better people. His mother had given him $800 million and the wisdom to use it well. He was building an empire of purpose on the foundation she'd laid, and that was the best revenge of all, living so well, building so beautifully, that their betrayal became irrelevant noise in the symphony of a life well lived.